Hello, my name is Hope from the platform of eSeniors.org. eSeniors is a non-for-profit organization that provides virtual companion for seniors between the ages of 60 to 95. And I want to especially welcome you to today's book reading section. We just rounded off a book from Buchi Emetita titled Second Class Citizen. So we're going to be starting off a new book today titled The Golden Crown. The Golden Crown by Ben Oji. The Golden Crown by Ben Oji. So let me briefly read about the author. Ben Oji had his secondary school education at Boys Secondary School, Ago, in Enugu State, in Nigeria. He obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Management from the University of Nigeria, Enugu campus, and Masters of Business Administration degree in Banking and Finance from Anambra State University of Science and Technology, Enugu. He is the author of College Politics, Out of School Adventure, The Battles, and Greedy Half Brothers. Ben has a flair for reading and writing and loves traveling. So this is all about the author. So before we commence the book reading section, I would like for us to I would like to have a brief summary of this book we're about to read. So listen. Mr. Johnny Ebo, a brilliant university graduate, secured a job in a bank with the hope of making a successful career in banking. Unknown to him, unethical practices and unhealthy rivalries among staff and permeated the industry, turning it into a cruel world in which unscrupulousness thrived. The chief executive officer of the bank, like all the other senior officers, was greedy and continually promising the bank's policies for personal gains. It was one of those incidents that caused the chaos which put the bank in a financial mess and ruined the careers of many staff. So this is just like a brief summary about this book we are about to read. So we are going to start off from chapter 1. Chapter 1. Listen as I read. Mrs. Chioma Ebo was among the fashionable women in Amako community. She was known for her high taste in dresses, especially wrappers. Almost like a ritual, she was always the first person to wear any expensive wrappers introduced to the market. As a chick, she knew the color of blouses that matched any color of wrapper and the colors of hair tie and shoes that would go with them. She had good knowledge of George wrappers and could easily tell the quality and price of any. She wore the very expensive and beautiful ones. It was her flair for classy George wrappers that earned her the nickname George, a name she had great fondness for and was always prepared to go out of her way to appreciate whoever called her by the name. George Ezinwanye called loudly, "This a dazzling outfit. You surely did not buy it in this part of the country. I nearly could not recognize you in it." George chuckled as she responded, "My dear, you are quite correct. My rich brother-in-law bought it at Lagos. It has not come to our area yet. When you expose it to the sun, it sparkles like glasses. I have never seen something like this before." That day, Chief Ebo was celebrating his first son, Johnny's graduation and new job in the bank with a family Thanksgiving mass in the local church and had invited the entire village. A jolly good man, Chief Ebo saw the event as an occasion to make merry with friends and relations. His wife, on the other hand, considered it a fashion extravaganza. She was trying 2 pieces of pricey George wrappers. She was tying 2 pieces of of she was tying 2 pieces of pricey George's wrappers. The one of the top was loose and had slid down to her waist before she quickly grabbed it with both hands and retied it gently. She pleaded with her friends, Udoka, to knot her head tie in an elegant style. She had tried severally to knot it without success. She loved to have her head tied sit flamboyantly high on her head. That way she would stand out in a crowd. Chief Abel had dressed up and was walking about the compound welcoming their guests while waiting for his wife. The compound was bubbling with activities of relations and friends who were assisting with the arrangement. A group of young men who were preparing meat for the cooks gathered beside the kitchen. 2 big native he-goats had been slaughtered and burnt with firewood. The large embers were shimmering and slumbering, emitting white smoke after the goats had been removed from the fire. In that high temperature, the butcher commenced work. Their sharp knives moved up and down as they slashed the head goats to pieces. By the entrance of the compound stood a big umbrella tree under which another group had assembled. The group was the custodian of palm wines, and Mr. Elim, a retired school teacher, was in charge. His cup was a big cow horn with some carvings at the tampered base. Its capacity was about a liter. In a ceremony where there was insufficient wine, the user of such a horn would have an advantage while sharing drinks with other guests. However, in time of plenty, the user got drunk faster than others. That was Mr. Elim's situation that morning. He was both the receiver and the assessor, so he had a lot of taste. The tappers trooped in to deliver their consignment. He gulped about half cup from each keg and pronounced his verdict. Good wine tappers received commendations as the results were announced, while the bad ones were reproached by all. The exceptionally fresh and tasty ones were kept aside for special guests. Chief Abel embelled up to Mr. Elim and said, "Teacher, I hope you are getting good wine. I want you to keep 4 kegs for our guests from the city. They love our palm wine so much." Mr. Elim had already done that, so he merely pointed at some kegs that he had kept aside and said, They are. He quickly drained what remained in his horn and licked his lips delightedly. Almost instantly, he poured a little wine in his horn and handed it to Chief Abel. He took it and gulped a mouthful, retained it in his mouth, which appeared bloated. He switched the wine in his mouth to assess its quality. After a while, he swallowed it noisily and nodded approvingly. This one obviously came from a mature tree, he said as he returned a horn to the owner and pointed at another keg. Let me taste that one." Mr. Elim laughed and pointed upward. Chief Elbow understood, finished the remaining drink, and returned the cup to the owner. Mr. Elim laughed. Sorry. Somebody whispered to him that the mass had started. He was an interesting Christian, although the chairman of Abaku Parish Council. He only attended masses occasionally during during social functions like bazaar, Thanksgiving, and launching of any sort. Notwithstanding, he looked he liked going to church early. That day was his day, and the service was his too. It was expected that he would be in the church before the officiating priest. Chief Ebo reacted as if he had been woken up from slumber. He called his wife. "Madam John," they said, "the priest is waiting for us." "Are you not ready yet?" Chief Ebo called his wife Madam John. John was their first son. His wife in turn called him Papa John. It is common in Igbo communities for husband and wife to rename each other after their first issue, especially if it is a male child or twins. George responded from the sitting room. "Papa John, I am almost ready. Please give me a little time and I will join you." She was sweating slightly on the face. The sweat formed little drops on her forehead before running down her face, intermittently sliding into her eyes and causing her a little irritation. She was clutching a white handkerchief she was using to clean her face. The handkerchief had been stained has been so stained by her brown powder that it had lost its original white color. She was hurrying to meet her husband, who had entered the car. "Madam John, are you no longer attending the mass?" Chief Ebo asked impatiently. The car was about driving out when George remembered that she did not lock her bedroom where the gifts for the occasion were kept. She called out to her house help, but Chief had had enough of the delay and he ordered the driver to move. As the car drove off, George stuck out her head from the window and began to talk to the girl who was then running after the car. "Please lock my bedroom and bring the key to the church." They arrived at the church when Holy Communion was concluding. Chief Ebo hurried to the altar to receive Holy Communion before going to take his reserved position in the front pew. It was time for Thanksgiving and priest called on the Ebo family to come forward with their friends. Chief Ebo and his family members went behind the church building to assemble with their friends and relations who accompanied them to the church. From there, they marched to the altar, dancing and praising God. The chore was already with good songs, and the senior chore masters, Mr. Emanwafo, was in command. At the rear of the church building, a long line had formed with George and her family and her husband in the front. Their first son, Johnny, who graduated from the university, was behind his father, carrying a tuber of yam. His younger brother, Osondu, born during the Nigerian Civil War, was carrying a crate of eggs, and their two sisters had a chicken each. Other numbering over 30 followed, some of whom carried one gift item or the other. The items included yams, oranges, bananas, pineapples, some gallons of vegetable oil, bags of rice, and crates of soft drinks. Struggling along were two drenched young men hauling a fat native ram. The animal refused to move and fell on the ground, whiling its large and twisted horns at draggers. The boys already had a rough time dragging it to the church and needed help to move it to the church building. Help was not forthcoming. Everybody was neatly dressed, and nobody wanted a tug of war with an abstinent ram. The young men were left to their fate. The procession started moving with Chief Abel and his wife leading. As they stepped into the church building, the choir began a popular song. Kpoya Onyoma, Kpoya Onyoma, Kpoya Onyoma. The congregation joined the choir to sing the melodious song to the delight of all. The song was sung many times before another was introduced without a break. We are saying thank you, Jesus. Thank you, my Lord. We are saying thank you, Jesus. Thank you, my Lord. The second song was more moving. George stood at a place and began to dance gracefully. Her friends joined her and the procession stopped. She was fanning herself with her fanciful hand fan she had bought for the occasion. Her white horse-tail accessory hung on her shoulder and dangled gently on her back. In the community, a horse-tail was an unmistakable identity of a woman title holder who commanded high respect. The procession was now approaching the altar. The officiating priest, catechist, and the masked servant catechist and the masked servant were waiting to receive them. The priest had a large plastic bottle of holy water which he would sprinkle after blessing the family. The catechist, to be assisted by the masked servant, would receive the offering. Those sitting on the back pew stood up to catch a glimpse of the action. The priest was delighted when he saw the fat ram being hugged to the altar. He signaled the choir master to change the song. Mr. Wanfo knew the appropriate song for any situation, and the music became more melodious. They reached the altar. Chief Abel and his wife knelt down before the priest. Some of their relatives knelt by their side, while others stood behind them. The catechist and his assistant received the offerings. One side of the altar was filled up with assorted items. The priest prayed for the family and their company and sprinkled holy water on them before they danced back to their seats. Numerous parish now congratulated Chief Abel and his wife for the extraordinary Thanksgiving. George asked the driver to take her home and come back for her husband. All along, Ezinwanyị had been following her about. During the Thanksgiving procession, she ran to George and collected her handbag. With that, Ezinwanyị created a convenient job for herself and was the first to board the car when her friends was going home. When the mass ended, everybody trooped to Chief Abel's compound. By noon, the compound was filled up by guests. The entire villagers, young and old, were present. Several canopies were set up at the edges of the compound and chairs arranged therein, while the center was left for the entertaining musicians. Young girls were serving food: jollof rice, fried rice, pounded yam with bitter leaf soup, yam porridge, goat's meat pepper soup, fufu with melon soup or okra soup, etc. The boys were serving drinks at the same time: beer, red and white wine, whiskeys, assorted soft drinks, and palm wine. Guests were washing their food down with different drinks, but the people's favorite seemed to be the combination of pounded yam with bitter leaf soup and fresh palm wine. It was really a heavy meal, but there was good music to burn it off. A local high-life music band positioned at the center was performing. The musicians, who was from a neighboring village, was popular. He knew many guests by their names and was singing their praises. Anytime he sang the praises of any influential person, he was rewarded with a few naira notes, usually the low denominations, pasted on his forehead. The Christian mothers were the first to dance. At their request, the band played Prince Nico Mabara's Sweet Mother. They danced in a circle around George. Chief Ebo went to his wife and pasted some new naira notes on her face. Many guests joined them. Some spread money on their hosts, but many others merely danced and walked back to their seats and continued the merriment. The celebration was gradually drawing to a close, and Chirebo and his family and his wife were moving from one canopy to another, exchanging pleasantries with their guests and thanking them for honoring their invitation. Once in a while, they sat down with some guests and cracked jokes. Those who came from the city brought different gifts. Some gave money in envelopes, and others brought assorted drinks and other beautifully wrapped gifts. It was getting dark. The guests from far places had all gone, and the people of Akbaku had taken over the venue to do justice to the remaining food and drinks. At that time, there was no more work to do. Everybody was relaxed and enjoying whatever he or she liked. The usual storytelling that went with palm wine drinking was at its peak. The elders were in control of the exercise. The youth listened with enthusiasm, for that was an opportunity to learn more about the history of their village. The elders were narrating the event as vividly as if they had just happened the previous day. That way, legends had been passed on from generation to generation. It was Mazidike Ekbeku turn to entertain the youth with his story. Dike Ekbeku was tall, with a shelved body and an amused facial expression. So for several years, Dike was the unbeatable wrestler champion of the village. But as a result of old age, he now looked frail and suffered from memory loss. I want everyone to listen very carefully, he began. What I am telling you now is something I have never told anyone in my life. It was during a joint hunting expedition of our village and our neighboring village, Oboli, that I set an inevitable hunting record for the two villages. At the agreed date and time, the hunters from both villages gathered at the junction where the road leading to the two villages meet. It was there that the hunting ground was decided, and we all trooped into the forest and spread in different directions. Suddenly, an alarm was raised about a changing a charging buffalo. Everyone took to his heel except me, kneeling on one knee. I aimed at the approaching beast. Bam! My gun went off. He pushed the air with both hands to demonstrate the potency of his weapon. His audience cheered. The ovation was still on when Mr. Oko Nwezi arrived. He exchanged pleasantries with the storyteller, shook hands with the other elders, and teased a few young men before taking a seat. Osondu, who was eager to hear the rest of DK's story, said, Mazi DK, please continue. What happened to the buffalo? Which buffalo, my son? DK asked amiably. I mean, you should finish the story you were telling us about how you shot a buffalo, Osondu replied cautiously. All right, my son, I am almost done. So I set my right leg forward as breath. Foolishly, Ochora fell for it. I grabbed his truck and flew him like a log of wood. That was how I went home with a star prize, the most beautiful lady in our town as wife. Ha 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 ha, he concluded happily. Mazi, this story is different from the one you were telling us before. The former story was how you shot a buffalo. Osondu reminded him. Mazidike retort, no, my son, I was telling you how I married my wife. The wrestling contest was the fiercest in history. I was only a young lad like you then. The audience responded collectively, Mazidike, you did not end the story of the buffalo. We want to know what happened to it. Mazidike reacted to the comments with annoyance. I do not like children putting words in my mouth. You are lying against me. I have never mentioned buffalo since I came here. Are you people dreaming or what? Mazi Oko intervening as he said, our father, please calm down. DK turned to him and began to explain, my good brother, can you imagine what youths of today are turning into, lying against someone of my age? He got up and faced Mazi Oko, waist. Holding his stiff waist, he bent down painfully and touched the ground with the first finger. Standing half erect, he pointed the finger towards the sky and swore, if I ever mention buffalo here, when I go to bed tonight, let me not wake up in the morning. George was standing nearby and listening to the argument, but when she heard Mazi Dike swear, she knew her head backward and laughed, angered by George's laughter. Mazi Dike walked away, ignoring Oko's entrance. It was not only in the audience that knew. It was not everyone in the audience that knew that Mazi Dike had dementia. Those that knew merely laughed it off. To pacify the audience, Mazioko Nweze offered to tell the story of his adventurous sojourn at the commercial city of Onitsha before the bloody civil war. Oko was a renowned medicine man and the leader of the village vigilante group. Akbaku vigilante group was a dreaded one. The leader was believed to have enormous magical powers. He began, what I have. He hiccuped and stopped talking for a little while. What I have always told you, the youth of today, is that good name is worth more than all the wealth in the world. Look at my head and look at Mazi Ezeji's head. The grey color of our hairs is not that of the ash. What you are seeing is nature. That is the greatest reward one can receive from God for living an honest life. He paused and looked at Mazi Ezeji, the oldest man in the village, for confirmation. Mazi Ezeji had dozed off and did not know what his colleague wanted him to do. When no response came from him, someone nudged him. He was only half awake when Oko asked, Mazi, am I not saying the truth? Is that state of confusion? Mazi Ezeji responded, my younger brother, you dine and wine with the spirit. What you are saying is indisputable. Oko was discouraged by the response and he talked philosophically. Things have changed so much these days. Young people are now more eager to get rich quickly and by all means. That is causing the bizarre thing we hear and see today. Respect is dead and buried. Respect is dead and buried. Wealth instead of God. Our Creator is what we worship these days. Many years back, when my head could not pass over my head to touch my ear, my father sent sent me to Mazi Ofodili, a wealthy merchant at Onitsha, to learn trading. So this is where we're going to be stopping the book reading session for today. Tomorrow we'll commence from where we stop. Thank you so much for listening. Till we meet again in the next session. Bye bye.